Rosie broke through the crowd, hustling up to the counter by the window where Tracy stood. Rosie was a fireplug of a woman, her dark hair, complete lack of a neck, and right now the intense look of anger on her red face made her look like a very serious fireplug. This wasn't a woman you wanted to mess with. She meant business, and as far as I could tell, with all the people buzzing around the shop, her business was doing very well. "Tracy, did you call the police about those two thugs trespassing on my property?" Rosie demanded, pointing her stubby finger toward the window at a young man and woman on the sidewalk. "Is that Misty and Nick?" I asked Tessa in a whisper. Tessa nodded. The couple had spread out a colorful batik cloth on the sidewalk and had pulled all sorts of glass beads and pretty woven bracelets out. I wasn't sure what made these two people thugs, because every time I'd chatted with them, they'd been sweet, maybe down on their luck, but they seemed like good people. Misty, the young woman, was wearing an old red flannel shirt and faded jeans. Her hands darted from item to item as she laid out the bracelets with care. The cuffs of her shirt pulled back to reveal a tiny geometric tattoo around her right wrist. Her partner, Nick, pulled off his hooded black sweatshirt and settled down cross-legged on the ground next to the cloth, his knees poking out through the holes in his jeans. Nick opened his backpack to start working on some new bracelets, engaging customers with a charming smile as they came by. From what Tessa had told me, Nick and Misty had no permanent place to call their own, and they apparently did a lot of couch surfing. Several people stopped to look at what they were selling, and while they didn't make any sales while we watched, it did seem like they had enough interest in their jewelry that they'd have some buyers eventually. I could nearly see the smoke rising from the top of Rosie's head as she flailed her arms around and shouted at Tracy. Tracy tried to reason with her mother. "I don't think we can do anything, Mama. They're not on our property. It's the sidewalk. It belongs to the city." "This is ridiculous. Nobody has any balls in this city," Rosie said, punctuating each word with a thump on the counter with her fleshy fist. Tracy winced each time Rosie's hand made contact. "I will deal with this and you later." Rosie turned to leave and saw us standing there, having just witnessed her outburst. She grimaced just a little. It was enough to remind us that she was human and had just embarrassed herself with that temper tantrum. Then we watched as Rosie's stout body wedged its way back through the crowd and out of sight. Tracy looked woefully out the window. She didn't know what to do. This couple couldn't be much older than she was. Tracy clearly didn't agree with her mother, but didn't seem to be able to stand up to her. I supposed Rosie didn't like the couple cutting into her potential profits, but really, were there going to be any fewer beads sold in a shop because a couple of kids were trying to make a few bucks to make ends meet? "Let me help you find Judy," Tracy said, composing herself as she tucked her long, dark hair behind her ears. We followed Tracy through the shop and into the classroom at the back of the building, where she pointed Judy out to us. Judy was standing right in the middle of the room, and as people approached her, she spun around to greet them like a middle-aged whirling dervish. She wore a tiger-striped bead on a long chain, nearly whacking people nearby as she turned. While Judy's necklace was pretty, the rest of her needed a makeover. If Val ever met her, she'd be trying to convince Judy to let her give her a complete overhaul. Val was always looking for frumpy women to fix, and Judy was a prime candidate with her gaudy, oversized jungle print top. Judy was the hardest working volunteer I'd ever met, and an extremely talented jewelry designer. This weekend of events was her brainchild. Everyone who wanted to be part of this exhibition had to apply to the Jewelers of Washington League. I agreed with Val, JOWL wasn't a good acronym. It spelled something that I and everyone else knew they didn't want, especially when looking in the mirror and saw our faces drooping every day. But the idea for a bead-related Weekend was brilliant. Artists applied to exhibit their jewelry at the event, and for those who were accepted, it was a terrific way to gain exposure and meet new clients, both professional designers and hobbyists. Unfortunately, with only one person to check in all the bead makers, it took forever to get Judy's attention. "Oh, hi, Tessa," Judy said with a squeaky voice. She grabbed Tessa's hand and gave it a good shaking. "And you must be Jax. Nice to meet ya," Judy said, looking up over the top of her bifocals from her clipboard. Fortunately, she didn't try to shake my hand because I had a tentative hold on a stack of boxes. I wasn't sure if I could manage even a head bob without everything tumbling to the floor. Judy was too enthusiastic for me, especially since I had only had one cup of coffee today. She was pleased that there were so many people here to set up for the gallery show. She was the sole juror for this event, and its success depended on her ability to choose the right artists to sell their work and to decide who had appealing workshop projects. Rosie was counting on the success of this event to bring in loads of new customers who would buy the supplies needed to complete each of the workshop projects. "Okay, let's see, where's my clipboard?" "Oh, ha, right here in my hand," said Judy, trying to laugh at herself. We weren't laughing with her, or at all. We did smile through gritted teeth, but mostly because we were feeling impatient. Thin, curly wisps of hair were stuck to Judy's forehead. Either she was always moist around the edges, or she was having a personal heat wave, as we sometimes said of women of a certain age, the age we were rapidly approaching. "Jax, those are super earrings. Did you make those?" Judy said, reaching over and pulling one of them towards her so she could examine it more closely. My head followed along so she wouldn't rip the earring right out of my ear. At this proximity, I could see a million tiny droplets of sweat across her brow. Ew. As Judy released the earring, I pulled away as fast as I could. I did. I figured if I kept my responses short, maybe Tessa and I could get out of there before we turned another year older. "Right, I've got Jax," said Judy, putting a giant check mark next to my name. "Oh, Jax, we don't have a studio name for you." I'd never thought about an official studio name before. I'd always just used my name, Jax O'Connell, Jacqueline, if I was feeling especially formal or fancy. "Ladybug Beads," I said, knowing immediately what the name should be. It was a spontaneous decision, but it seemed like a good choice. I named my studio after my car. I'd bought the car when I was getting ready to leave Miami. I'd gotten a huge final paycheck when I left my job at Clorox. They paid me for all the vacation time I hadn't used. Since I'd never taken a vacation, it was a sizable sum. I took the chunk of money out of my bank account and bought a brand new car, having decided I didn't need the beat-up old Honda Civic anymore. I went to the VW dealership and bought my dream car, a brand new red Volkswagen Beetle with a black ragtop, which I christened the Ladybug, with a bottle of Diet Coke at the side of the road during my move to the Pacific Northwest. Judy looked up from her clipboard and focused on Tessa. "Aha, now let's see. Fremont Fire, got it," Judy said, adding another check mark to her list next to Tessa's name. "We brought Dylan's bead. He's White Mountain Design," Tessa said. "Okay, and a big fat check mark for him," Judy said. "Let me show you the exhibit area. You can set up your sample necklace on the pedestal, and then your beads for the projects can go directly below it so customers can select what they want to buy for the weekend's classes." The gallery was beautiful with its deep burgundy walls and matte silver exhibition pedestals. The jewelry and beads were going to be displayed on top of each of the waist-high columns. A broad window opened onto the gallery, allowing passers-by to look in at the displays. Glass jewelry needs to be lit properly in order to show off its shine and transparency, and Rosie had done a brilliant job of making sure the lighting was perfect for the exhibit. "You've each got a display bust to put your necklace on." Judy was speaking so quickly now, she sounded like a tape recorder put on fast forward. The faster she talked, the squeakier she was. We have some other forms available if you need them. For instance, if you have a bracelet to display. I may make some adjustments to the displays, and of course, we'll make sure everything stays safe and secure. Jax, here's your pedestal. Judy patted the top of it and wiped off some invisible dust, leaving a trail of moisture behind. And Tessa, you in White Mountain, your pedestal's right over there, she continued, pointing to the opposite wall. I'm glad you're doing this weekend of workshops, I said. You mean weekend of education, enlightenment, and design? Judy sounded proud of the clever name she'd given the weekend's events. Weed? Yes, I thought it was super. You know, our knowledge grows and spreads like weeds. I thought about wed, but I didn't think anyone would want this to be a wedding-oriented event. Instead, I thought people will think this is a pot-smoking event. Great. Okie dokie, said Judy, as she went off to find the next person on her list, and then she was gone, swallowed up by the crowd of people milling around the shop. Judy needs to work on her acronyms, I said to Tessa. What, you don't like jowl or weed? I say, without a doubt, both are terrible, but I bet you can't do any better. I'm up for the challenge. How about new ideas in beads? Nib, not good. Bead makers united, teaching together, but the worst. Okay, maybe it's not so easy. So there's that's a little. Thank you. A little bit about what's happening, and of course, many other things happen in this book.